Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Welcome to the show, y'all. Today I'm going to tell you a story about this young woman that is faced with a dilemma of turning in her boyfriend to free her stepfather. But before I get to the meat of that story, I need you to understand the backstory. I need you to understand why this situation came to be what it is. Because without the backstory, you just wouldn't have the proper context to fully understand and appreciate how this situation played out. And this story plays out way before we get to the young woman, right? Way before we get to her, you know what I mean? But this story plays out starting with the mother. And her name is Teresa, right? But Teresa, we're going to go all the way back. We're going to go back before she was a parent. We're going to go back to high school. And when she was in high school, she fell in love with this guy named Billy, right? But see, Billy had a best friend named Terrence, right? And Terrence is somebody that, you know, he really liked Teresa, but he understood that she didn't see him that way. She didn't see him that way. She saw him as a friend because, see, they lived next door to each other. They lived next door to each other and they saw each other every day. They played in the yard, you know, kickball and all that, hide and go get it and all that kind of stuff. But they never looked at each other. Well, she didn't anyway. She never saw him like that. But his best friend, Billy, oh man, when she saw Billy, she didn't know how to handle herself. Got all giddy and laughing and all of that kind of stuff. You know how it goes. You know, when you see that person that, you know, that makes those butterflies get in your stomach and all of those types of things, right? And it makes you think of all these nice things in life, you know, ice cream and cake and all that old kind of stuff, right? So over time in high school, Teresa made her way to a situation where she was able to talk to Billy and Billy could talk to her, and Billy let her know that he liked her. And Billy was like the football star, the basketball star, the baseball star. You know what I'm saying? He was a big fish in a small pond. Big fish in a small pond. And everybody liked Billy. Everybody thought Billy was that dude. You know what I'm saying? And he was in high school. You've been there. We've all been in high school where we're popular and people like us and all this and that. Your little friend circles and everybody asks you stuff like you know way more than them, but you don't because you're the same age as they are, but they look up to you for whatever reason. They look up to you. And Billy was that guy. But see, Billy didn't do a lot of focusing in school. You know, he had a lot of girls, including Teresa, that would do his homework for him and things like that. And Billy didn't understand how that was handicapping him. He didn't get it. He didn't get none of that. But Terrence, he stayed focused and took care of his own work. He didn't have a girlfriend that would do his work, plus his mother wouldn't let him. You know what I'm saying? So he had to do his own work. So he started to develop that foundation for academia and got smarter and smarter and smarter. And so did Teresa. You know what I'm saying? So did she. But, you know, when you're in love, you don't see all of that. You don't see your future. You know what I'm saying? In the way that you want it to be or need it to be. You feel what I'm saying? You see a future that includes the one that's making you feel all giddy inside. And Billy made Teresa feel giddy inside. So Teresa and Billy, you know, like a lot of high school kids do, they got together one night, and lo and behold, all it takes is one time, y'all. All it takes is one time. 3 or 4 weeks later, she missed that day. Y'all know that day I'm talking about. And she finds out that she's pregnant. Now she goes to tell her parents, and her parents, they do what a lot of parents would do with their high school baby ends up pregnant with a baby. They shoot off, but they're supportive at the same time. They're disappointed and hurt, but they love their daughter, and they're going to love their grandchild even more, right? So they do what a lot of parents do. They call, after they ask her who was the father and all this and that, right? You know, they called his parents and asked to speak to his parents and asked them to come over to the house and all of that kind of stuff. And when they came over to the house, they brought Bill over to the house, and the conversation that needed to take place took place. And they all were a little aggressive with their language, telling them they knew better, they should have been a little bit smarter than that, but the situation is what it is. A baby's on the way, ain't no taking it back. And they all agreed that they would help them out. But they all wanted them to stay in school and finish their schooling. And that's what they did. And as time went on, you know, they were seniors. As time went on, Teresa's belly started to show. And Terrence had this hidden love for Teresa. And he knew that Billy wasn't doing right by Teresa. Billy's sneaking around and messing with other girls and all of this. And he's stressing Teresa out because, she has to stay home now. She can't be out gallivanting, running all over town and going to the mall and arcades and all this and that because she's showing now. And, like a lot of pregnant women, she's having, sickness and a swelling in the ankles and all this and that. And she just wasn't able to do all of that kind of stuff. And plus it wasn't safe for the baby. But Terrence was always around, helping her out, talking to her, encouraging her, and covering for Billy in a lot of ways. Not because he thought that what Billy doing was cool, but he didn't want Teresa to be hurt by the truth. He didn't want her to be hurt by the truth. So, but when he had his opportunities, he would go tell Billy, quit that, man. She's a good one. Why are you doing her like this? Billy didn't want to hear that. He didn't want to hear any of that. He was more in line with the, don't get in my business and all this old kind of stuff. And you better not say nothing to her. She loves me and all that and I'll deny and all of that kind of stuff, right? But see, because Terrence lived next door and he grew up with them, it was nothing that Billy can do to stop him from being able to go over there because their parents were friends and all this and that. So he always was able to go over to check on Teresa, see how she was doing. Well, 9 months later, a week before graduation, she has a beautiful daughter. And her daughter's name is Cheryl. And Cheryl looks just like her mama and daddy. You can see both of them in her. And this is supposed to be a happy occasion, right? And it is for all intents and purposes for the grandparents. They are giddy over their granddaughter. They just, oh man, showering her with love and kisses and all this and that. But Billy is more concerned about getting out, going on some date, meeting some girl in some, secluded place so he can continue to relish in this like he's this big fish in a little pond. But it's time to man up. And Terrence, he starts to feel some resentment because he's looking at the baby, Cheryl, and he's seeing, Billy in her, and he knows that Billy's not straight, but he doesn't let that be known. He goes and plays the role that a good friend plays in situations like that, right? Or so we think that's what a good friend is supposed to do. And Teresa, she's not even able to graduate. Well, she graduated, but she wasn't able to walk, the ceremony that you have at graduation. She wasn't able to do that because she had to tend to the baby and all this and that. And plus, it was a week after she had given birth. So they brought her diploma to her. And some of her friends, they all came over and they, kissed all over the baby and all this and that. And she had a graduation and, an introducing Cheryl to the world. And everybody was happy. And Billy played his role. He pretended to be the happy father, the dedicated father. And Cheryl was loving the attention. She's a baby. She's a baby. I mean, brand new. Most of the time she slept, but when she was awake, she loved the attention. And she particularly loved to be held by Billy, her father. She loved it. She loved it. Whenever she would cry and he picked her up, she would stop. It was just something about that bond. You know how daughters are when it comes to the father? It's that bond. It's there. And everybody knew it. But Billy was more concerned about doing other things. He pretended to be one person, but the whole time he was somebody else. And time fast forwards, okay? Cheryl is 2 years old now. Teresa is in college, getting her life on track. And Billy, he's now a little fish in a big pond. He's a man. He's out in the world. And things are not working out the way he thought they would for his life. And if you want to know the rest of this story and how it continues to unravel, you're going to have to come back and listen to the next episode. It's right there behind this one. Don't worry about that. It's going to get better, y'all. Just bear with me. I want to put this in the proper perspective, though. It's going to get better. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.
I'm getting so